Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit, no influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and before we dive into our next series, we're going to do a fun little episode or two. But today in episode 13, we are going to cover the 5 keys of a successful online summit, including why each piece is so important and tips on getting started with implementing. Before we dive into that, I want to mention that giving yourself the right amount of time to plan and launch your summit is really vital to creating a successful event rather than one that looks just kind of thrown together. And as you probably realized by now, timing is everything. With my free virtual summit prep timeline, you can see the amount of time I recommend setting aside for a summit, my top tips, a look at the big picture tasks, and even a timeline calculator to make sure you plan everything right the first time. So get the virtual summit prep timeline by going to summithosthangout.com/timeline. So there is a lot that goes into hosting a summit. You know that, I know that. We all know it. But success can look like so many things. It can be income, list growth. Maybe success from your attendees taking action is what you are aiming for with success. Maybe it's how much you can give back to a charity or something else. It could be something else entirely, but no matter what, there are some pieces you should always pay attention to. So let's dive into those. I have 5 of them. Now, this first one might not be overly exciting, but I want you to hang with me. So first and most importantly, you need to know your goal. In order for your summit to be a success, you need to know what success looks like. So before you even start planning your summit, figure out what your goal is and just write it down. Is it related to your income? Is it related to list growth? Is it related to the new connections you'll make with your speakers and where that will lead your business? Or is it like new client leads you're going to get or new people you can put in a funnel for your products? Determine what your goal will be and then use that goal to plan out the rest of your summit. So for example, if your goal is to grow your email list, make sure you're taking every opportunity to do that in the way you're planning your summit. Maybe you focus less on certain other aspects so you can put more time and effort and resources into growing that email list. So that's why key number 1, know your summit's goal, and it will help you get better results all throughout the rest of the process. Now, key number 2 is to plan ahead and be prepared. And I know this sounds silly, but there are so many summits I've seen and summits I've had my speakers tell me about where the host is kind of a disaster and it turns out terrible for everybody. I think the speakers probably get the worst end of that deal because there's no organization and they kind of have to pay for it, but it's going to carry over into the results your attendees get as well. So to run a successful summit that actually makes you look like an expert and not just unorganized, you have to be prepared. And like I mentioned earlier, hosting a summit takes months of planning. In fact, even now, even though I have a very set system, I still give myself 3 months for each summit. Even though I have resources to make it easy. So when you have your summit idea, go in knowing that it's going to be months of work, fun work, in my opinion, but months of work and planning before it's actually launched, and make yourself a timeline to follow. And now I do want to note that that might sound scary. Just remember that the months of work, a lot of that is giving your speakers time to make their presentations, time to pitch your speakers and hear back from them, time to do the promotion period. So it's not that it's so much work, even with templates and tools and resources, that it's going to take you solid months of work, but some of the pieces just take a little more time. So you need to be prepared in everything from what technology you use to what will happen if a speaker drops out at the last minute to what you'll do if you have a tech glitch show up on day 1 of the event. You want to have a plan and some wiggle room for when that happens. So one of the things I really like to protect myself against is speakers dropping out. It has actually happened one time in my 2 bigger summits. A speaker dropped out for various reasons, both totally fair reasons. But I am so grateful that I had a backup plan for that, just so I didn't have to deal with like having an open spot in my schedule and having to explain that. So having backup plans for everything is a good idea. If you're one of those who is dead set on hosting a live summit, you definitely want some backup plans for tech glitches that could happen there. But you want to be prepared in all aspects. And that way, if something goes wrong, the whole thing isn't going to fall apart on you. So let's dive into this third key of a successful summit here, and that is to keep your speakers happy and engaged. And we have an entire episode coming up on this down the road, but if your summit is going to be a success, your speakers have to be engaged and excited. And for that to happen, you have to treat them well and put some effort into it. And this doesn't have to be difficult. It includes giving them information they need, giving them templates and resources to make it easy, making sure they benefit through the summit with maybe high affiliate commissions or specific payouts or portions of the email list of people who showed active interest in their topic, or even just the ability to reuse their presentations. You need to make sure that your speakers will get a return on your summit just as much as you are getting a return from having them speak. And along with this, you just need to make sure you're supporting them and giving them what they need to do their job well. And this can look like anything from worksheet templates to graphics and scripts for sharing on social media. If you're going to have pre-recorded presentations, you could even take care of video editing for them to make their process super easy. Now, you don't have to do all those things, but those are the types of things I want you to consider to keep your speakers happy, because it's something a lot of people miss. And like I said, we're going to have a specific episode on that coming up, but it's so important I wanted to mention it here as well. Moving on to key number 4, you want to have an engaged audience for your summit. If your summit's going to be successful, your audience needs to stay excited and engaged throughout the entire event. This includes the promotion period, during the live summit itself, and the days after the summit but before the cart closes. My personal favorite way to keep attendees engaged is through a free Facebook group. It's easy, and everyone knows how to use it, and they stay active. But in there, I have daily prompts that they can participate in, encourage them to team up with accountability buddies, and do some bonus trainings before the summit starts. That way, they're engaged, and they're ready to take action when day 1 of the summit rolls around. They haven't signed up for the summit 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time and totally forgotten about it and lost all of their excitement by the time it starts. And then throughout the time the summit is running, I do prizes and giveaways for attendees that are engaged and interacting. So I am totally not above bribing people to be engaged, and it totally works. So I do a daily prize, and attendees get entries by interacting in the Facebook group or in the live chat box. And I do a grand prize at the end of the event as well. I also keep people engaged by just making sure all of their questions are getting answered. It's as simple as that. And when you pair that with offering an insane amount of value through the summit, audience members are just much more likely to stay engaged. And speaking of the insane amount of value, that leads us to our 5th and final key, which is just adding that insane amount of value and making sure your attendees get it. And this happens in a lot of different ways. When you bring together a group of experts, you are automatically giving your attendees a ton of value. But there are some ways that you can go above and beyond with it as well. So first, like I mentioned earlier, do some bonus trainings. Before your summit starts, jump into your community and do some live videos or write some long-form posts related to things they need help with. Give your attendees actionable tips so they can see results before the summit even starts, and so they can feel like they are making progress and they're just staying excited about your event. Also, make sure that the value your speakers are giving in their presentations is truly something attendees can actually take action on. Remind your speakers that this is not a webinar. This is not a place where they should be giving little hints of why attendees need something and then just pitching them the way they can get that. That's not the point of this. The point of a summit presentation is to actually give people what they need to take action. So your attendees should be able to then walk away from each presentation feeling like they have exactly what they need to accomplish a very specific goal. And ensuring your attendees can leave your summit with results will do a lot to reach whatever goal you have set for yourself. When they're excited, they're going to be more likely to share, stay engaged, and speak positively, which will help you bring in even more people, more sales, and more results, really for everybody involved. So if you focus on these 5 key things, you will increase your summit's results tenfold and have a lot of fun in the process. But I know it can be overwhelming to tackle so much at once, so your action step for today is just to decide one thing to focus on. If you're not sure, I would recommend starting with that first key we talked about, which is knowing your summit's goal. Sit down with yourself for even 5 or 10 minutes. Consider the summit you are planning to host and decide why you're really doing it. What is the end goal? You might have originally just decided to host it because it sounded fun. It sounded like it could bring you some growth. But sit down and take the time to figure out what that growth looks like and what exactly you want to get out of it. It's totally worth it to take a few minutes to do that. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. For show notes and resources mentioned, head to summithosthangout.com/013. Giving yourself the right amount of time to plan and launch your summit is so important to creating a successful event rather than one that just looks thrown together. And as you probably realized with today's episode, timing is everything. With my free virtual summit prep timeline, you can see the amount of time I recommend setting aside for a summit, my top tips, a look at the big picture tasks, and even a timeline calculator to make sure you plan everything right the first time. So get the virtual summit prep timeline by going to summithosthangout.com/timeline. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable